Now, The Larry O'Connor Show. At AM 630. WMAL.
We're going to check in with Michael Rubin, American Enterprise Institute, a little later in the program. Get his impression of day one of the Kim Jong-un summit there with President Donald Trump in Vietnam. Also, there's a big story brewing over this military conflict between Pakistan and India, where Pakistan reportedly shot down 2 Indian aircraft. And, well, there's a lot of history there in that area. We'll get to that with Michael Rubin. Also, Representative Ralph Norman, who is a Republican on the House Oversight Committee. He is going to join us to talk about what he experienced today with the Michael Cohen testimony. That testimony is on recess right now, but will be resuming soon. And while it's at recess, it's a good time to check in with our friend Tom Fitton. He is the president of Judicial Watch, and I know he's been watching these hearings as well. Your overall impression, Tom Fitton, of this show that we're seeing?
Well, if it were a show, I probably would just think nothing of it. But I just think it's a genuine abuse of power by the Democrats running the committee. Mr. Cohen has an attorney-client relationship with the president that survives his firing and disbarment, and you have the committee getting attorney-client material from Mr. Cohen, getting attorney-client protected and other confidential documents illicitly from Mr. Cohen, and victimizing President Trump. And in my view, this is just one in a series of steps, of abusive steps, by the Democrats to go after Trump. It began during the Obama administration in collusion with the Clinton and DNC operation, who provided that dossier that they used as an excuse to spy on Trump. And then you see, of course, Hillary Clinton's top associates, one of her top associates, Lanny Davis, who's representing Mr. Cohen for free, sitting there right behind him. You might as well have had Hillary Clinton gaveling the hearing into order.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I want to come back for a moment to this attorney-client privilege thing, because, I mean, obviously you're not protected by attorney-client privilege if there's any sort of law being broken. But we're learning a whole lot of stuff that has nothing to do with criminal behavior, aren't we? I mean, this seems like a fundamental violation of that right, if it's true. And frankly, I don't think half of it is true.
Yeah, of course, you just can't make the allegation you're asking about criminal behavior to bring a lawyer in to violate the confidences of his client. You wouldn't have any criminal defense lawyers being able to operate otherwise, or any attorneys. But the rules don't apply to Donald Trump. So the protections you and I have, Larry, they don't apply to the President of the United States. And no, he's not above the law, but he's also not beneath the law. And, I don't know how much lower the Democrats can get in terms of targeting Trump, in terms of the quality of witnesses, but this is a pretty decrepit and abusive behavior by the Democrats. And, Congress knows the privilege applies. Cohen knows the privilege applies. And you know who else knows the privilege applies? The Mueller Special Counsel operation. Mm-hmm. And they've endorsed and ratified this as well.
Yeah. Can you talk to me a little bit about, it seems to be a lot of people are making hay about this canceled check for $35,000, which they're referring to as criminal hush money. Now, as far as I know, if in fact it was the reimbursement of a retainer and Michael Cohen did pay the adult film actress known as Stormy Daniels money with regard to a non-disclosure agreement, what's the argument that that's illegal? Everybody enters into non-disclosure agreements in this town, or in the media for that matter.
No, and the payments, if indeed the payments were for the non-disclosure agreement monies that Cohen says he paid out of his own pocket, why, if there was a problem, why was President Trump writing checks to him?
Yeah.
The allegation is the campaign should have paid for it. And of course, if the campaign paid for it, Larry, they would accuse the Trump campaign of engaging in campaign expenditures in violation of the law. They're trying to make something out of something that may be embarrassing to President Trump, because he did not want this public, but just because you have an agreement that both parties engage in, that both parties benefit from, that Ms. Daniels took money for, it doesn't make it illegal, certainly. And Cohen alleging it, to me, is just is frankly not a credible way to get to the point where you want to allege President Trump committed a crime, which is what Democrats are desperate to do here.
Usually, Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch, I have you on lately at least to talk about the Robert Mueller investigation, the claims of Russian collusion. In fact, that's what all I've been hearing about from Adam Schiff and from other members of this august body, the House of Representatives for the Democrats. It's all been about Russian collusion. But there didn't seem to be too much about Russian collusion today. What do you make of that? Are they moving the goalposts? Is that no longer the operative issue?
Well, what there was about Russia collusion wasn't helpful, and that's why they didn't want to focus on it. Mr. Cohen said he didn't know anything about Russia collusion, though he had his suspicions, which doesn't really get you anywhere.
Yeah.
And on top of that, he says he wasn't in Prague or in Europe, which directly contradicts core allegations of the dodgy dossier created by the Clinton DNC. To be talking about Russia, it means the Democrats need to be investigating themselves, since they were colluding with them to get Donald Trump through the dossier.
Yeah, well, exactly. And he was asked about Prague. I played a little bit of that earlier. That's kind of a big deal, right? Because the dossier said that he was in Prague. He says now he wasn't in Prague. How many news outlets, media outlets, ran with the story that Michael Cohen was in Prague? I mean, that's all part of sadly, the false narrative that we've seen over the last 2.5 years.
No, and to be clear, Mr. Mueller is pursuing the dossier and allegations like that, and they've known this dossier has been had zero corroboration for years, and yet this president's still being harassed. And recall why this hearing is taking place. It's designed to overthrow the president, and it's taking place while he's abroad, negotiating sensitive issues on behalf of the United States of America. And this is, if a serious hearing is a serious hearing, and maybe they had an argument one way or another, if it's a serious hearing, that they're going to hold it no matter where he's traveling. But my gosh.
Well, I think we would have gotten to it by now.
Just to embarrass him with a really discredited person, to try to embarrass him and violating his rights in doing so is just unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. But sadly, it's what we've seen.
Third world government type of activity.
We only have a minute left here. We are expecting, though, to get that Mueller report sometime in the next week or two. What is your opinion in terms of, I haven't heard you comment on this, whether that report should be made public or not, if in fact there's no criminal findings other than what we've already learned about? Do we deserve to have transparency, or do we deserve to know everything that he's found?
There'll be push for transparency on any report, but you can bet it's going to be something that's not credible, given the type of testimony we're seeing today and the collapse of the Russia collusion. I kind of take a different view. There should be no dossier written by Mr. Mueller. We already have one dossier. We don't need another one written by the Get Trump partisans on his team.
Well said, sir. Tom Fitton, he is the president of Judicial Watch. Go to judicialwatch.org because that group's doing a whole lot in this town, and we need them to keep going. Tom, thanks for joining us today, as always.
You're welcome, Harvey. Thanks. You're welcome, Harvey.